So I remember when I was in Uganda at around age of 14, I think I was in grade 7. I got really sick, and at that time, no doctor could really make the final diagnosis of what was wrong. And it was something very simple. It was amoeba. But it took a very, very long time for them to actually find out what it was. So that kind of prompted me into thinking, well, what could I do as a doctor? How could I have treated this situation differently? So I feel like that was one of the main factors that drew me to medicine. And I really felt like I could make a difference. And I was living in a tropical country, and I was suffering from a tropical disease. So that really drew me into medicine. And that is why I decided to study medicine. Training was quite affordable. The healthcare system and the education system there was pretty good. So I applied, and everything just worked out, and I found myself in Ukraine in 2017.
A lot of people and a lot of our students, we don't just leave our country just because we want good education, which is one of the things, but a lot of us are escaping just things from home as well, A lot of things are happening back home, and it's not just even Cameroon, it's a lot, even in Nigeria and Congo, and we can keep up naming them. So those who have the opportunity like I had to further their studies and to have a better education, they always take it for sure, because first of all, you have a better studies, and what happened in Cameroon and what was happening, I had to take responsibility for myself and most other people, because I have friends who, they pay for their tuition, they had to make their way in Ukraine, they had to fit into the society, to make something out of a living for themselves, to support, most of us were Uber drivers, some of us were working in companies, just doing part-time to support ourselves and to, fund our studies. Because for the last years, I was the one responsible for my well-being and my tuition, and with everything that was happening back home, you kind of felt so separated, and the war back home has really affected my, especially the English part, in a very huge way, because a lot of people have lost their lives, and a lot of people have been displaced. My family personally had to move, so our house or home is still abandoned up to this date, and the businesses and everything, they had to, run away. So this has caused a very economic problem back home.
As the conflict unfolded, the academic pursuits of these dedicated students were abruptly disrupted. From studying in lecture halls one day to navigating the harsh realities of a war-torn country the next, these students found themselves on an unexpected journey.
Well, before I even left for Ukraine, I knew there was a war that had happened in 2014. But when we got there, everything was fine, and it had been fine. We were told around January that it was just a military exercise. This is something that happens every year. Nothing to worry about. I remember one of our high officials in the school said 99% nothing will happen. And they really did convince us that, nothing is going to happen. We should stay calm. And at that time, a lot of students wanted to leave. For the first time, I felt like I was not safe there. I myself was considering leaving. I was telling my parents, we need to have a ticket on standby. I need to go because I don't know what could happen. And that was the whole feeling before the war started. I froze. The first thing we did was just drop everything, changed. I was on a call with my mom, and the first thing they're like, okay, we need to make sure that if you cannot leave, you have enough food, water, money to stay with you. And when it comes to school, my school in Toronto, they were very gracious. We continued online. Everything has been somewhat normal. It's almost as how it was during the lockdown for COVID. We have online classes. Our teachers are present. They're teaching. They're engaged. They are worried about us and where we are, and they hope that one day we will be able to come back and finish.
Yeah, I was doing business administration at Kharkiv. National University of Economics. I was a student in Ukraine, and I did not finish my studies, so Russian has invaded Ukraine. So how can I finish my studies? Because it's so hard for me like to stay without doing nothing. And then I asked them for help. They said, okay, we can see you off to the prefecture in order to have a resident permit in France or a student resident in France. So what happened when we went to the prefecture, they directly told me, sir, actually you cannot go back. Is there a war in the country you're coming from? I said, there is no war, but actually I'm facing a lot of problems in my countries. I know why I left my country in order to pursue my studies in Ukraine. So this is one of the reasons. So I cannot go back there anymore. For now, I cannot go back there. And they asked me, so since you did not justify anything, telling us that you cannot go back to your country, so we are giving you 1 month of stay. So that 1 month, they said, whether you find a job, second thing, you need to get an university where you can continue your studies, and the third one, you ask for asylum. I need to choose one. But within that period of time of 1 month, I have to get one of them in 1 month.
But how should I go back home when all I have is a high school diploma and I have a few months left to graduate? And I am being told, oh yeah, just go back home. It's not fair because we are students. We wanted to learn. We wanted to continue our education and, work. Be any other normal functioning citizen, resident of any country. Work, study. That's all we have always wanted.
Since leaving Ukraine, one of the first challenges these students have faced is obtaining their transcripts from their educational institutions, a vital step for continuing their studies. Additionally, they are grappling with issues around residency and legal status in their EU host countries, further complicating their educational journey.
I got 2 admissions from 2 different universities at the same time, but the problem was the school fees. The school fees was very expensive that I couldn't afford it. I realized that this is not going to be possible because I don't have any money. But in fact, since I have the admission, maybe I was saying maybe when they give me like the resident permit, the temporary resident permit as a student, I may find a job and then pay my fees and then working at the same time as I was doing in Ukraine. 30 days. If I don't leave like France, maybe they will, tell the police that, they have to come for me and then deport me to my country. So I don't want this. They actually want me to leave France, but I cannot leave that because I have a lot of problems in my country and I cannot go back. We sold all our properties, our legacy, whatever we were having there, we sold everything in order to go to Ukraine and pursue my studies. So when I go back at this time, I will deceive my parents and I will deceive my family. To be honest, I cannot afford like $2,000, $3,000 to pay my fees because even where I am currently in France, I'm in the difficult situation. Even to have food to eat is very complicated for me. Anything where money is involved, I cannot afford it because I'm just coming from the war. I'm not feeling that good. I'm in the bad situation in France because they don't want me to stay here. The biggest challenge that I'm having here right now, I don't have the right to work. I don't have like the right to study because I don't have any means to study. And I cannot go back to my country. They said as soon as you find a university, they will transfer all your documents to you or to the university itself. They will give your document to the university and do whatever they can do to make the transfer easy, they will do it in order to continue your studies. You have to pay the school fees first, and even if you pay that school fees, they will even ask you to have a bank account also, a block bank account where you can spend, let's say, 600 euros every month. Within this process, for their education, they don't have any problems, like they're getting fully funded scholarship from the government. So whoever wants to study, You just need to make the registration. You start your studying, which is not easy for Africans like who were living in Ukraine. But for Ukrainians, nobody had the problem like that. Nobody. Like the place you are coming from is a safe place, and you believe that you can, have a better future in that place. You can have a good education in that place, good health system. I'm not sure if you will have the mindset of moving from that country to a different one.
And you look at the system and you look at the things, you don't understand why. I still don't understand why, because they don't give us access to education before and everything. Now in Germany, for you to study, there's a lot of requirements which you have to go through, and the rest, which was made very easy for Ukrainians to get into to the system to continue with their studies. But for third country nationals, you had to go through those requirements. It's like you're getting admission back from, let's say if you're home, you have to provide all those requirements, everything. Like, how do you get to this point where you're just like roaming around the street? It's like, I was in school last year and now I don't even have a place to stay. I can't even continue with studies. I can barely eat. I cannot even, it just became so horrible. If you want to take the German classes, like I said, C1 to enroll into education, bachelor's, for example, is going to take you a year and maybe plus. And you have to fund it, and you have to have a place to stay. It's Berlin, we know it is, so it was really a big challenge. And not aside from that, again, as an international student, which we've been treated, one of the other requirements was you need to provide a block account with 11,000 euros. And that was another step. Okay, let's say you finally get into the language C1. How are you going to get the 10,000 euros? As a student, you have to get the German language, and even if you have it, you need to have a block account, with 10,000 euros to have a permit. It's been a challenge. It's still been a challenge for most people who want to study in Germany, and it's still ongoing. Education, of course, is the key.
All we want is opportunities. Give us the opportunities, make the playground fair, and take it from there on a high level, so that we as Africans never need to go through something like this. Because yes, we do have a home, but even though you have a home, the opportunities there are not going to take you anywhere unless you are qualified. For us to better our country is if they're able to support us. Like in this situation where I am here, if I had more support here, of course, one day I would want to go back to Zimbabwe and practice medicine. That'll be the ultimate goal, where finally I'm living back home, where my family is, and I am practicing medicine. I am serving my community. I'm serving the whole country to the best of my abilities and giving back to the community. That is one thing that we would want. So I think it is important that we first fix our own countries so that we make it easier for us to stay there, learn there. And then, even the ones who are outside, give them the resources that they need. And at the end of the day, it's Africa that will benefit from it.
So basically, where I am right now, it has been my dream to be, a great leader in Africa. This was one of my biggest dreams, to be a great leader. And I'm still on that path. You see me today, I was doing these studies in business administration. First of all, I wanted to work in a bank. I wanted to work as a director of the corporate in a banking sector. This was my aim since I left the country. And be a leader, a good leader, to impact the community and help people. This was one of my dreams. For now, I don't know where I am, if I will make it in the future or not. But I want to impact the world. So like if they can help us, this is one of the reasons that I left Guinea. I actually want to continue my studies in business administration. Then after that, do my MBA in business administration as well, in order to have the dream job that I had before. Mainly what I want right now is just to resume, to start my education, to continue my education, finish my education, have my diplomas. This is what I'm asking for. If it is in France, I will be happy for that. If like they can help me get my scholarship, help me get a scholarship, or if they can help me maybe go to the US to continue my studies, whatever they can do. What motivates most people to leave the continent is because the educational system. So we don't have technology, and the system is not that good. Sometimes it's so hard to study there. Like if like you don't have electricity, it's something else. If you don't have electricity, you don't have technology. Even to have a computer in Africa is something, you have to have the means for that, So this is one of the reasons that most of the people that live in Africa to come to Europe or the US to study, because we hope that the good education is found in Europe and then, in the US. Yeah, because over there, we don't have all the means, like to get a good education that we wish for or we want to get. We don't have all the means. They need to invest in Africa in the, in the educational system to help African, strengthen this system so that all these African people, they can stay in Africa, study, they get a good education there, and then, open their companies there and stuff, because this is one of the dreams that I had. Like to be a great leader, have my own company, work for myself, impact the world, impact Africa.
I mean, personally, for me, I believe is the key to everything because it opens up your mind to a different world, how to think, how to build things on your own end. We lack most of these things in Africa, We don't have the resources, despite the security things that's happening back home, but the educational system is not really good. And that's why you find a lot of students trying to make it out there just to get the best out of education. And it's very important because when you look at what is happening back home and the rest, because I've grown up with, this really talent in Africa. We have a lot of smart people. Like, I believe personally we are the smartest people on earth, to be honest. We have a lot of talent, but the education and it's not there. And sometimes it really hurts because you actually see someone who can do something, who can be the next Elon Musk or something greater or the next, but then they don't have, maybe because of the financial situation, they end up doing something else just to survive. If they had the opportunity to do something or being exposed in a society where they have the tools, they can actually make use of these things. And we have very smart people who can do a lot of things, but we don't have the proper education, the proper guidance. And, this is limiting us. I feel like we are the leaders of tomorrow. We are still, but we need to tap into education and, bring it back home. If there's anything that's going to change Africa, it's really education, investment. That's why we have a mass influx of people or students every time, going to the Western world. And sometimes when they get there, they are the best. We really have to come back home and try to work together to see how we can take control of our economy, of our resources, and make the education good. Believe it all starts from the education, and us in the diaspora have that. I think if we can work together, you know, even for those of us that are still made it outside or, you know, have the knowledge on if we can come together to see how we can bring back these resources home.
As we look to the future, these students are far from passive in the face of adversity. They're advocating for their right to education, tirelessly working to obtain crucial transcripts, and joining forces with organizations like NoirUnited International for humanitarian efforts. Their actions today are not just for themselves, but also serve as a rallying cry to inspire systemic changes that can better the lives of countless others. Let their stories be a call to action for global leaders to foster real, lasting solutions.
All are humans.